Do, 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 do. And you're muted again.
I've got to fix that setting. I don't know how that happened. I'm back. Huh?
What?
I can't hear you. What? You're muted again. You're muted again. I didn't push a button. I can't be muted.
All right, kids, don't do this at home. You only pros, let pros to handle it.
We got two old middle-aged. We're not middle-aged. We got two old white guys here.
There we go.
Technologically challenged. Hey, welcome to the Power of You.
Mike Tyson fights. Yeah, welcome to the Power of You. Good to see you. Good to see you.
This is an interesting topic this week, and just to kind of frame things, to kind of contextualize it. We do Power of You every week, and the whole focus. We were in what I think episode 54, something like that. We do these. So we've been doing this over a year now, and and it's all about all things leadership. We really, Doland and I, wanted to unbundle this topic of leadership and really get into the weeds around it. So we've got a curated site that we'll tell you about later here, but all of these episodes are up on the site, and they are all accessible and available to you and your team.
Right.
So, and they're about 45 minutes to 60 minutes long. So not an inordinate amount of time. What we want to be able to do, though, is position this so that you have access to a resource that can enhance your ability to lead more effectively. That's kind of what it comes down to. So we're going to head off today with a little bit different thing. We did this last week. We've got a little program that Doland and I do called the Soul of Business Experience. And what we're looking here is it's a year-long experience. We're not going to belabor this. We're going to go through this real quickly here, but we want to just kind of position this as a resource that you can take advantage of. We think it's a fundamentally powerful resource, and we really want to have you find ways to leverage it. So it's a curated community, mentor-guided sessions. Like I said, it's a year-long program. Doland and I teach every week. And then we've got the cohort broken into subgroups, which we call the mastermind subgroup, and they're mentor guided. So there's a mastermind cadence to this. And the whole idea of a mastermind is more minds generally will enhance the problem solving ability that you are looking to have access to. More minds, better solutions. So that's what we're looking at on this. So, you can just kind of play with that one a little bit. For the sake of what?
We're going to talk about for the sake of what. We're not going to tell you what that means at the moment.
Right.
But no, it's interesting. When we do the Power of Yous, these are weekly snapshots in leadership. And the Soul of Business Experience is designed to be a year long, and we'll get into what that looks like across the body of the year. But the three main things: straighten your leadership capacity, move from ideas to action, and then the difference that makes the difference is the mindset component, which is 93% of all behavior. We've talked a lot about that, but the intention is for your development as a leader is moving from that snapshot-based kind of content, which we love doing and will continue doing, into an opportunity in a program that spans across the body of a year. That it's kind of like I would call it a doctorate in leadership. It's what we call it the next evolution of leadership, because we cover topics that really are deeper, wider, and much more powerful than vision, strategy, and tactics.
And this, by the way, is the 6th year that we've been running this program. And like I said, it's a year-long program. So we're doing 2 a year. And we are tendering an invitation to you to at least consider having a conversation with us. And you can see as it scrolls below here, have a conversation with us about, does this seem to fit for you? Does it make sense to you? And here's the journey. We work on this model: awareness, context, which generates, basically it's the meaning generator, that guides all behavior. All behavior is informed by things that we think are meaningful. So awareness, meaning, how do you communicate about what you're trying to make happen as a leader? And part of the breakdown, actually, all of the breakdown that occurs when you try to take strategy and implement it, into your organization. You've got a vision, you want to leverage strategy, so you start looking at how this gets done. That's a breakdown in leadership. The strategy probably does make sense, but how do you get people to buy in? So communication is a big point, a big part of that.
Yeah.
Because what you want to engender through effective communication is commitment. You want people that are committed, and not committed from the sense of you're the boss and you told me to do this. Committed from the sense of this makes a difference for me, and I really want to have this happen. And then the foundational piece has to do with trust, and we'll spend a couple of months literally in each one of these paragraphic structures are month-long sessions. So, as you can notice, awareness will take 3 months, literally 3 months working with awareness. We'll take 3 months working with communication. Those are the two foundational pillars that we work with. Next steps here, if you're interested, like we said, we're going to be kicking this next cohort off on March 30th, which is only a couple of weeks away. Schedule a conversation. There's a pheno. We call this a pheno.
Yes.
Feel invited, not obligated. Okay. All we want to do is have a conversation. Does this seem to fit? If you're interested in leadership, this is probably the premier leadership development program on the planet today. And humbly speaking, Doland and I've got about 90 plus years of experience in teaching and working with and being leaders ourselves. So don't be shy. Schedule a conversation, and we'll tell you if it's a fit or not. You can't just drop in to this program. Right. You have to be invited. And that's what the purpose of this particular conversation is about, is let's see if it's a fit for you. Let's see if it's a fit for the program itself, because who's in it makes a big difference. It's a curated group.
Well said.
That being said, it was well said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Power You. I love this topic because I always enjoy these topics. But to talk about drift today, and there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, those of you that are watching today, if you are interested, I've just dropped a new book, a small little ebook, Stop Drifting, Start Living.
It's a good book.
Yeah, and you can get a free copy of it. So as we go through this, feel free to be intrigued, feel free to have questions, and feel free to ask us for how can I do more with this by getting a copy of this book. We'll send it to you free. It's an ebook. So it's a digital download. I'll make it very available to you, tell you how to do that. And just, as we wrap up here, the idea of drift, Napoleon Hill obviously wrote Think and Grow Rich, but he also wrote in 1937, I believe it was, another book called Outwitting the Devil. That book did not see the light of day until 2007, I believe it was, because the family put a kibosh on it. Because it literally severely challenged existing social structures around religion, politics, the way that society framed itself in terms of how you are supposed to belong. I mean, all of this stuff. And the whole focus of the book was how we drift, how human beings will begin to drift from who they innately are and could be, literally could be living the life of their dreams. How do they drift from that possibility? And it has to do with everything that gets layered on top of us as we end up living our lives, layered on top of us by society, layered on top of us by our religious systems, layered on top of us by governments, layered on, fill in the blank. Invisible drift. That's what we want to be talking about today, because from a leadership perspective, you'll notice in organizations that we will say, that's where we're going. And you look up 3 months later and somehow you got over there, not over there. How did that happen? I thought we were doing everything right. Yeah. We did the scrum meetings. We did, we had all of this stuff. And what happened? We drifted. And that's what we want to talk about today.
Good. Love that.
The a very interesting metaphor that you can kind of play with on this. First of all, the kind of drift we're talking about is insidious. You don't notice it. It just kind of creeps up. It's just kind of, It sneaks in the back door as you're not paying attention to things, which is one of the reasons we spent a whole lot of time on awareness in our mastermind program.
Yeah.
The way that this works, imagine an airplane. Now, little known fact, if I'm flying from Seattle to Tokyo, I happen to live in Seattle. If I'm flying from here to Tokyo, about 94%, 96% of the time, that airplane is going to be off course. It's going to be off course. The winds are blowing and there's all kinds of stuff aloft. So the autopilot and the pilots are continuously correcting. Now, you think about that in the context of what we're doing as leaders. Crosswind hits the aircraft. There's no alarms, no turbulence, but the plane has been pushed off course. And the heading, because we're not paying attention to where the plane is going, we start noticing that it's, something seems to be out of sync a little bit. Let's fix the out of syncness. Yeah. And we start paying attention to the behaviors and we lose sight of the heading. This happens all the time. The captain trims the controls to maintain stability. The cabin feels calm, but the trajectory, because the trajectory didn't really get considered, when we were trimming the aircraft, we just went back to stability and the wings are level now. Phew. But we start getting creep going across here. Instruments look stable, crews attending to monitoring the aircraft stability, but the actual heading has begun to morph. It's begun to progress. And that's how leadership drift works in organizations. It's subtle, it's invisible, and it's cumulative over time. Mostly because leaders and the teams that they're leading are paying attention to something that is important, but it's not inclusive of the right thing, what I call the right thing here. So that's what we want to pay attention to. That's what we're going to look at this week.
Yeah, love that analogy. So true. When it's symptom, we do this every week, is symptoms. So leaders, the intention behind this slide is really, here are things when you go and you smell it, here are symptoms that you may smell in the body of your organization to give indicators that drift has occurred, right? One of the things is when that occurs, if the engagement drops. Engagement in your teams, we're always looking for, we always use this other word with it called empowerment, right? It's a big word. Could mean a lot of 1,000 different things, but engagement drops. And engagement doesn't drop, as Blaine was talking about a moment ago, it doesn't drop with a big bang. It's not like dropping a glass plate on the floor. You don't hear it, but engagement quietly drops because what happens is people begin to disconnect. And when we disconnect silently.
Yep. And we, it's in that word disconnect. I've never paid attention to this, but I heard this when you said that disconnect. You will hear around the water cooler, quote unquote. The conversations are dissing conversations. Well, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
They want us to do what? Does that make any sense to you? I mean, those are dissing kind of comments. So we disconnect. We actually separate through dissing. The conversation, language creates reality. It also is a reflection of an internal reality that's kind of going on with your team. So you want to pay attention to, what are people saying? How are they showing up? Because it is usually subtle. It quietly drops. And when that's going on, people's sense of belonging starts to weaken. It's kind of like, who am I? Where do I belong? Well, I'm not sure if I fit here anymore. I remember a long time ago, my sister, she worked at a bank, and she'd been with this bank for some time. And they were acquired by a bigger bank. And I was talking to her on the phone shortly after this happened, and she was madder than a wet hen. To use one of my mother's old farmhouse terms. She was madder than a wet hen. Sis, what's going on? What are you so upset about? And the acquiring bank was, they operated with a very flat hierarchy. I mean, it was a flat management structure. Her bank was pretty hierarchical. There was a bunch of levels. And she was going, they want me to do stuff that's not my job. Well, what do you mean it's not my job? They're asking me to take responsibility for things I never took responsibility for. It was kind of like that shift. It was, there was this discombobulation occurring here. It was pretty visible. She did
Yeah.
not feel like she belonged in that organization any longer. And her conversation was dismissive. And so, yeah, and this was, I mean, obviously drift was occurring, but it was,
Sure.
this is what happens with most mergers is you immediately introduce something that begins to cause things to get a little squirrely out there.
Yeah, the bubble moves.
The
Now
bubble moves, yeah.
the bubble moves. Yeah, no,
So
it's funny
if you
because
think of a level, it's kind of like this is not a
yeah,
level playing field anymore.
where's the bubble? But no, yeah, the bubble does move. And then as these stitch together, when engagement drops, belonging's going to weaken, right? Because now and it weakens without warning. It just stops. You don't get a warning. Well, in 2 days, I'm not going to belong anymore. It just stops. What happens then is integrity fractures. And it's funny because all these four, by the way, why we do this with the set of four, is they all stitch together.
Yeah.
It's for those of you who may have programmed code in your life, it's an if-then statement. If this occurs, then that will happen. And integrity fractures. And what happens with integrity is because of engagement's now dropped, belonging has now weakened, trust is now eroded. And trust is now a deep component of integrity. Trust is a founding block inside of integrity and accountability, those two pieces in particular. So now integrity starts, and it's going to, again, all of these things happen very quietly. And you notice this not in people telling you, but as a leader, you notice these symptoms because you miss deadlines, you miss targets, there's cloudiness around where are we really going, which is an indicator that now you're in drift.
Yeah, and what you'll hear in the organization is typically, and this is something that both Doland and I've heard over and over and over again when we start consulting with our clients, we've got an accountability problem in our organization. we got to fix accountability. Well, that's an integrity. Yeah, that literally is an integrity fracture.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people want to do what they say they are going to do. Typically speaking, people don't deliberately and maliciously go out of their way to violate an agreement that they've made. It's the stuff that goes on around them that pushes them off center.
Yeah.
And then they're out of integrity, but they don't want to cop to it.
Yeah.
And this is where blame starts to come in. Well, if only marketing would have, sales didn't deliver what they said they were going to do. And by the way, if only production would get their act together, we wouldn't be over budget.
Right? Well, generally it's marketing's fault anyway.
Oh, it's always marketing's fault. I mean,
yeah, gotta be.
And all of that is an example of where coherence, I mean, coherence in the sense of fidelity. Yeah, coherent. I mean, when you think of a signal, an incoherent signal is noise. A coherent signal, there's high fidelity with it. And that fidelity collapses when pressure is placed on a system. When it's not built to hold that pressure. You're always going to have pressure of some sort. But when drift starts to occur, this is where fractures begin to appear in the structure. And when structure begins to fracture, coherence begins to go out the window. And all of a sudden, you've got a very noisy organization.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. People go, I'm out.
I'm out of here. Bye. Dove Barron, some of you may be familiar with Dove. Dove is an interesting guy. He's Canadian, lives up just north of me here in Vancouver, British Columbia. We were in a conversation the other day, and he happened to mention something that I actually wrote down. I said, Dove, that's brilliant. Integrity collapses when your external behavior no longer reflects your internal truth. Now, I want to just pause here and have you consider that. Internal truth. This is, Doland and I both, I mean, the soul of business, the soul of business experience. Everything has a soul. And I don't mean this in a religious context. Everything has a spark that gives information about what it could be. We could be this, we could have this, we could, so life always, all life looks for a full expression of itself. This tree that's in front of my office window, looks for a full expression of itself from the time it's just this little germinating seed to where it is today. It continues to grow. The ocean that's out in front of me here, same sort of a thing is going on. Integrity collapses when your external behavior no longer reflects a connection to that internal truth, that soul of your business, that soul of your idea. And because integrity is an expression of alignment, and that's just why this happens. Integrity is always an expression of alignment with that soul's force. It's not about compliance. And compliance is where we end up causing drift or having drift caused. We start going along to get along. Society says we're supposed to do this, so I put a cap on what my dreams are. Our religious institutions say we are got to do. We've got to behave this way. There's good, bad, right, wrong. So I'm going to put a cap on behavior. I mean, all kinds of stuff start to come into play here. So integrity is an expression of alignment with that core seed, that for the sake of what matters. And compliance is the way that drift actually takes hold. We comply with what other people think we should be doing.
Well said. Good job, Dove.
Dove did a good job on this. So this is about leadership.
Right.
And we've got a real specific definition of what leadership is.
Yeah, leadership, and we talk about this every week, but I'll go very quickly through this. It's the activity of influence. Very first thing is it's an activity. Leaders cause movement. Leaders create action, right? So it's the activity of influencing others. Influencing others is not command and control. It is how you show up. When you walk into the room, it is how people know who you are when you walk through the door. We've all worked with individuals where we go, what Doland have I got today? Have I got the cranky pants Doland, or have I got the good Doland? Not that happened in my life, but
no, never.
Which one have we got? So it's influencing others, which is that how we show up. Co-creating is that opportunity where we collectively with the others that we're influencing, we get to co-create that solution. Command and control is assigning tasks, delegating things, and saying, go forth and go do these things. Co-creating is that moment of inspiration where we can co-create an outcome. We can inquire, and we're curious, we're transparent, we want to know. Coordinated movement is how we move forward. How are we going to do this? It answers that question. It solicits that question. What do we do? How do we move forward? And because we've co-created, now when we move into coordinated movement, there's commitment involved. And that commitment is because there's something in here that's of value to me, which is worthy ideal. And the worthy ideal is that meaning that brings us to it. It's what inspires us. What is it that allows me to have something different? Who do I have to be? What do I have to do in order to have? It gives us that ability. So this Blaine and I talk about this sentence all of the time, but it stitches together into that outcome. It stitches together incredibly tightly. And if you miss any of these pieces, then your model of leadership shatters over time.
Yeah.
And drift occurs. And I love applying drift to this because it's just so true. Influencing, co-creating, coordinated movement, the worthy ideal. What matters to the organization in pursuit, and what does it matter to that individual that you're pursuing with?
Perfect. And when you think of this framing, and you mentioned this with drift, just kind of keeping this same framing structure here.
That was a good segue, wasn't it?
With a bang. It's a great segue here. Drift happens when subtle internal adjustments are made under pressure to, literally to protect the stability. And part of stability has to do with, I'm the boss. Don't let them see me sweat. I mean, all of that starts to come into play. I've got to look good here. I'm supposed to have answers. I mean, that's what they pay me the big bucks. All of that starts to come into play in terms of the mindset that people work with. And what they begin to do, because they're paying attention to that stability, they're paying attention to, how do I look? How do we look? Are we doing it right? all of those things over the truth of, and the truth has to do with connection to what matters. So when you're clear about what matters, coherence begins to appear. I mean, coherence, another word for that is alignment, lack of noise. The signal to noise ratio, gets very minimal.
Right.
Coherence is a structural alignment between what I know, what I feel, and how I act. Those three pieces: what I know, what I feel, and how I act in service of that worthy ideal. And
Yeah.
that worthy ideal is where the meaning is held. And leaders, when we work with leaders, oftentimes we'll hear them say, I've got to get people to behave different if we're going to get a different result. So they focus on changing behavior. Behavior, you don't want to change, you don't want to focus on behavior. That will lead to drift. You want to keep connected to what's meaningful. Meaning is the holy grail here. You want to land on meaning. What matters to the individuals involved? What matters? And if you've worked with well, what they are saying matters to them fits within what it is that matters to the organization. Yeah, it fits within
Okay.
what it is that you're working to produce here. If you don't work it that way, coherence fractures and meaning begins to shift across the entire system. Meaning is a behavior generator. Nobody behaves in a way that is antithetical to the meaning that they've made up about what's going on around them. They will always, work in concert with, this means this, therefore I'm going to behave in this fashion. That sort of a thing. So drift happens with subtle internal adjustments that are made. So as a leader, you run this through coherence. Coherence is another word for what matters. Okay, for the sake of what?
Love that. Just so tightly coupled with it.
It is. It just hand in glove here.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, almost always, and I love this. Clients, when they begin working with Doland and myself, they come with a presenting issue. We've got an accountability issue as an example, or
Yes.
we're missing our revenue targets on a particular, consistently, or we've got a big vision, big change afoot here. Can you help us work with that? So the old assumption is, we got to get our people re-engaged on this. Disengagement, and this is the assumption: disengagement is a motivational problem. Motivation is externally organized. What we have, however, is an inspirational problem. If people are disengaged, inspiration is not present. This is why the for the sake of what really makes a difference here. What matters to the people, the individual? If I can land on what matters, now I'm emotionally engaged with it. I care about this. So people are reacting to who you become under pressure as a leader. Dolan mentioned this at the very beginning. When you walk in the door from an influencing perspective, the story of who you are gets in the room before you do. Each of us is an energetic body, and we are continuously sending information out about what's important to us before we ever open our mouth. And oftentimes when we open our mouth, there's an incongruency. We say this is important, but we're behaving energetically as if this is going on. And there's a mismatch there, and people will pay far more attention to what you're doing than what you're saying. They'll pay far more attention to how you're being than what you actually are saying is important. All of that, that's meaning making in writ large here. So disengagement is not a motivational problem. It really isn't. Belonging, the other piece on this, is treated as a cultural problem. We got to fix our culture to get people more engaged. Let's find ways to get people to belong more. So let's have a Friday night beer bust. We'll do that. So this is not a cultural thing. This is not part of, the culture is important. Absolutely. A culture of belonging.
Right.
But that's not what we're looking at creating here in this context. Integrity gets treated as an ethics problem. Integrity is not an ethics problem. It's a consciousness problem. It's a consciousness issue. All three of these things collapse together, and it's because the internal adjustment is not being made. We're not truing back to what's the heading. We're trying to stabilize around the perturbation that's going on in the environment.
Yeah.
You can't fix drift with programs. You have to correct the heading. You have to reorient the heading. Now you're going to correct the structural misalignments. That's going to, you're going to want to do that for sure. But you've got to keep coming back to what matters here. What matters? What matters? Why is this important?
Yeah, there are programmatic components to that. You can't ignore the programmatic stuff, but programs don't fix drift. They're a piece of it. It's the girders that hold the building plate. I smiled when you were talking about that. I remember in the body of an organization, it was the way the leadership team wanted to fix stuff was by foosball tables.
Yep.
And
I've been in that organization.
Every floor suddenly had a foosball table on it. And it didn't really fix anything. But, I lost some money at the foosball table because I was terrible, but it didn't really fix anything. So,
no, but we're going to fix our culture by bringing foosball tables in. Now we got belonging. No, you don't. No, you don't. No. You get belonging when people identify what matters. And it's
although I do like the idea of the beer night. That's if you serve the entire team alcohol, you can fix anything.
Yeah, you can fix anything for a short period of time. Until the hangover comes in on Monday morning. Or HR busts the party.
Oh boy. Yeah, that goes on. Yeah. But I love that. That's the leaders that thought around it. When as we kind of jump off in the mindset around this, it is that when you're thinking of it, it's easy to get hung up in that programmatic thinking. What programs and things can I put in place to fix drift? That's you're going to ask that question. So when you are in your mind, when you're working with your team, you have a tendency. We can go back to the mindset, but you're gonna kind of step in. And I love the first bullet. You soften a truth so you don't appear unprepared. So the old colloquialism is candy coat.
Yeah.
So you candy coat a truth, right? So you don't appear unprepared, which in turn breaks breaks trust, breaks transparency, breaks communication, a lot of things. You learn about those things in our mastermind. Come hang out with us for a year. We'll tell you all about it. And as part of that, you begin to, there's a passive aggressive behavior that occurs. You agree publicly, which means you're in a meeting, and publicly is a meeting of 3, a meeting of 2, a meeting of 12. You're in that, or you're wherever you happen to be. In the back of your mind, there's a little yellow light that goes off right here, in the back of your neck, and you're agreeing, right? Because of that. So the one thing as the leader is the counter set to that is not softening the truth. It is mastering transparency, mastering communication, and not agreeing publicly while in trade. There's a way to communicate that, because one of the things that we talk about this, Blaine, a lot, without to completely digress, because we talk about one of the responsibilities of a leader is to create change. Change is uncomfortable. Disagreement is uncomfortable, because we all want to be agreed with.
Yep.
Sort of. So that's a mindset that get comfortable with creating disagreement, which in turn creates dialogue and conversation.
Yep.
And you don't move to create certainty with the intention to create safety. So you project a certainty you don't feel to appear safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it backwards, but my thinking was as you're moving, right? We're talking about disagreeing, but that certainty, you project a certainty you don't feel to appear safe. And we talked about candy coating, agreeing publicly while disagreeing. And in your mindset, now you're in that position to where you're going to position a certainty. It's a lesson my wife taught me, and I was teaching my son it last night. which is sometimes as a husband, I am 100% committed to being absolutely wrong.
Yep.
It's a man rule. And I'm sure leaders there was probably a lot of women leaders out there that went, oh, hell yes. Let me can I give you my husband's phone number. But you project that certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And you protect your image rather than protecting alignment. And all these things are points in mindset as leaders to catch yourself in and ask that question: am I protecting my image or am I protecting alignment?
Yeah.
Am I projecting certainty or do I want to look or do I want to appear safe? Am I agreeing publicly so that I avoid change and conflict? Am I candy coating something so that I don't appear unprepared with the five? Goes back to the five lies.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Which
then
was
the
the
last,
very first program we did.
yeah, the very first one we did was five lies. Day one, how are you? But then you call it professionalism. Your body calls it misalignment. In your mind, your mindset. So as a leader, it's that balance. So in our mind, this is what I do as a pro. This is what I do as a leader. Leaders do this. And you know in your soul, not your body, your entire soul, one of the three brains that you have, that you're out of alignment. You are out of alignment. Your team knows you're out of alignment because your vibration doesn't match.
Yeah.
There we go.
One of the things about this, if we were to take these 5 points and just kind of crunch them down, what it has to do with is the mindset that suggests that conflict is bad. Conflict is to be avoided. And a lot of what leaders do in service of avoiding conflict is all of these things that you see listed here, which is how drift begins to occur. So what we're doing to avoid conflict, and it's in service of stability, go along to get along, that kind of stuff. Highly effective leaders find ways to actually utilize conflict as a mechanism to keep things on track, to bring new information in that is informing the heading, what matters. Being able to facilitate a conversation where conflict is, you've got heat. You got heat. People are upset. They've got different points of view. How do you actually hold that space? Because if you're going to counteract drift, you have to be able to break its hold on you. And conflict, tension creates heat. Heat is a cleansing mechanism. Enough heat, you've got light. You start seeing possibilities, options that you've never seen before. All of that kind of comes with this. Leaders need to know, literally need to know, how to surface conflict and then how to appropriately work with it so that it doesn't spin out of control. Okay. So there's really 2 pieces to this here. You want to be able to use it. Fire is your best friend if it's harnessed. If it's allowed to rage, you got a mess on your hands.
Yeah. Different scenario.
Yeah. So when drift is going on and you're really not paying attention to what needs to be paid attention to, and by need to be paid attention to here is that connection to what matters. People stop challenging you directly because they've given up. They just say, well, okay. Yeah. Apathy, basically another word for this is apathy or compliance. They go along to get along.
Yeah.
And you'll see this in the way that they actually approach you. The words are measured. It's kind of like, how do I put this? And so those sorts of linguistic markers, they measure their words before speaking. They look around the room and go, well, this may upset some of you. And so just kind of like, let me drop the bomb before the bomb explodes here. They test the room before telling the truth. And their whole point is, managing your reactions instead of contributing to your thinking. It's kind of like, okay, you look like you're getting a little upset here. I think I'm going to back off a little bit. I'm not going to continue down this path. I don't want my head handed to me. Net result of that is, you got innovation that basically disappears. People, because you're going along to get along, you start iterating what was, which gives you an iteration of what was. There's no growth involved in this. Yeah. And Safety without coherence, because you can be safely coherent, but safety without coherence becomes compliance, and compliance will not produce the experience of belonging. It will not create emotional engagement. None of that will occur as a consequence of this.
Yeah, I love that. That last, as all of these stack together, and we've all been it. We've been in those meetings, haven't we?
Oh boy.
Where somebody starts, okay, well, I'm going to say something difficult, and then the whole room kind of goes, oh, really?
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Yeah. Who are you talking to? Yeah. Yeah. They're talking to themselves. The room is going,
right.
hey, whatever.
Yeah, you got 12 people. 4 of them wonder if they're out of a job. 4 of them wondering if they're getting a raise, and 4 of them wonder anyway. So there's that game. But I love that. Safety without compliance becomes with coherence. Without coherence becomes compliance. And compliance cannot produce belonging. And way back in the beginning, when we talked about the definition of leadership, influencing others to co-create coordinated movement for the sake of or the ideal. And when you think about it and you string that together, right, because you're creating what you think is a safe environment. Compliance is command and control.
Yep.
Command and control doesn't create belonging.
Nope.
Because you don't belong to being told what to do. You belong to the do. And it's and that's a binary measurement. Did you or did you not?
You in or you out?
It's binary. Yeah, it's a 1 or a 0. Lights on, lights off. Is belonging to the do. So I love that last statement. So leaders, as you think of that, boil that down to that last sentence, the last 4 words. Compliance cannot produce belonging.
And belonging is crucial when you think about the organization's ability to perform and to navigate an environment that is changing constantly. Markets change. I mean, we look around at what what we've got going on in the world today. There's all kinds of stuff that businesses are having to navigate. Yeah, raw materials are going up. Fuel costs are going up. There's political instability. There's travel is a nightmare. I mean, on and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
What matters? What matters as a business? What matters as an individual in the business? What matters?
Yeah.
That's where emotional engagement translates into highly effective performance. And emotional engagement is a consequence of belonging.
Which you tapped, which is one thing I don't want to, before we go on to the next slides, is it's just adjunct. So I'm going to ask you to say something. So one of the things that we talk about is ease and elegance. And we have a definition for ease and elegance. And compliance cannot produce belonging, and all of those things. And by the way, leaders, so who was I? Maybe you and I were talking about this earlier this week. So we've seen 3 global pandemics, 4 wars, housing boom. I think we were chatting about that.
Market crash.
Oh yeah, here we go. But all of that. But without getting to ease and elegance, you can anticipate or work with unplanned events. It's those unplanned for, right, to minimize that result.
Yep.
Consequences is the word.
Consequence. Yep.
Yeah, another C word.
Another C word. So
that's right.
We're talking about programs not fixing drift. Well, here's the reason why. Programs are externally focused. They do not address, typically they do not address, because they're not designed to address that internal for the sake of what question. That inspirational question. Programs are designed to address motivational issues, not inspirational issues, typically. So, and you can't build belonging because belonging is a function of co-created, coordinated movement. You can't build that on top of internal misalignment where things are out of sync, where you've got this mismatch between what we're doing and what matters. Yeah. You can't create belonging. You can't restore engagement while modeling separation. And this is the leader. This is specific to a leader's function. If you energetically are separated internally, you've lost connection to what matters, that for the sake of what. that will show up in the energetic body that you position yourself with and that you present to your organization. And you can't restore engagement while modeling separation. You're separated from what matters. And you're
Yeah.
asking people to behave as if this matters. They hear your words, but something else is in play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love that.
And you can't demand integrity, integrity, coherence, integrity, alignment, while trimming for image and stability. And this goes right back to the very first slide about when drift occurs, it's not with a big bang. It's subtle. So we find our ways in scrum meetings or wherever, doing little subtle fixes here. We're trimming for stability. And we will miss that the heading has started to shift. The heading has started to shift. But boy, this is stable. We are, we're hitting our KPIs. The
Mhm.
Trello board says we're on track.
I'm glad we got a Trello board in there somewhere.
I thought I'd co-opt you on that.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And the net here is, the room, the organization, the system, your team responds to who you become under pressure.
Yeah.
And this is why leadership is such a lonely sport. I mean, you really have to continuously monitor how you're doing, what you're doing, where you're at with yourself, where you're at
Yeah.
in relationship to what matters. You're going to be talking a lot, but what matters is the way that you show up. Leadership presence is what we're looking at here. And how do you curate that?
That is so important. You can't do it by yourself.
Nope.
You need to be a part of some kind of a way to help you do that.
And that's what our mastermind is designed for.
Yeah, shameless plug. There you go.
Shameless plug.
There you go. And so question, if screenshot this and grab this, leaders, and just throw it into your organizer or whatever you got. But in the last 30 days, where did you edit yourself to protect your image? Where did you candy coat something? Who in your organization is adapting to your incoherence right now? It's because they're going to adapt to your incoherence because they have nothing else to adapt to. So if you're not a coherent, they're going to adapt to incoherence. The outcome from that is they're going to make up their own stories. What truth are you withholding from yourself and calling it maturity? It's one of the hardest things as a leader is to tell yourself the truth and call yourself on your own. It's Thursday. I'll use the word stuff. Tomorrow I would use a different word. And what would you change if you led from internal authority instead of fear of consequence? So grab these, without exploring each one in great depth, but grab these questions. And it's a good model to put down at the end of the month as you're reflecting back, or at the end of the week and you're reflecting back. And modify them accordingly. In the last 7 days, where did I edit myself to protect my image? And leverage these questions to keep yourself. And by doing this, you start to minimize drift. Drift is going to occur. One of my favorite drift stories, I was thinking about when you're talking about the Blaine, not to digress again. Today's my digression day.
Digress.
With the NASA event where NASA sent a rocket to Mars and they missed it. They missed the entire planet because they allowed for a 1% drift, a miscalculation of 1% drift in the trajectory of the rocket. And that by allowing for that 1% drift, by the time the rocket got all the way to Mars, it missed it by multiple million miles because they allowed for that drift, didn't course correct for the drift. So as you're thinking about that, leaders, as you are measuring for drift in that's your job, to measure for drift. Ask yourself these questions. That's why we put them up, right?
Yep. Yeah, and again, I mean, I love that Mars example, and it's go back to the airline that's 93%, 96% off course all the time between
all the
Seattle
time.
and Tokyo. It's always off course. The pilots, when they're correcting, they always take into account the heading. We've fixed the stability error or whatever's going on there, that perturbation, that crosswind nailed us, and we've now got our trajectory also back on course here. We had to compensate for that as well. So we keep coming back to, is the heading correct? Is the heading correct? Is the heading correct?
Yeah. It is, and it's a question. It's a daily question as a leader. Is my heading correct?
Yep.
Daily.
So vision without structure creates drag. You've got to have a system. You've got to have a structure in place. I mean, it's one thing to have a vision for the organization, but if you don't have a way to deliver on it, you got all kinds of stuff going on that is not going to be attractive.
Mhm.
So we won't go through all of these here, but the mindset that I'll just kind of kick over to the right-hand side on this. Strategic focus, protect creative white space. Yeah. The busyness is one of the major causes of drift. The noise that goes on. If you and your team haven't built in reflective time, you're going to be bitten by drift, almost a guarantee. So you want to curate and protect white space. Yeah. I've got a client in Japan. They've got a meditation room in the office, and anybody can go there at any point in time just to kind of get centered again, and they've got all kinds of stuff going on all the time. And it's a well-used room.
Cool.
Well-used room. The indecisive delegation. You're not doing this by yourself by any stretch of the imagination. And we've talked about this in a number of different powers of you programs. Empower others with clear decision rights. Whose decision is this? You get the monkey where it belongs. And the for the sake of what makes that possible.
Yeah. Every time.
Which will move you into aligned execution. You see, you're not going to get aligned execution until the system is really cognizant of what matters. And the structure is set up to make that happen. Okay. And by structure, I mean, in some cases, we're talking here about organizational design. Is your organization designed to deliver the result that you say that you want to have? Is it designed to produce what you want to have? A lot of drift occurs because we take what we inherited as an organizational model, and we try to do new things through that old model. And Jim Collins in Good to Great talked about right seat on the right, right people in the right seat on the right bus. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need to change buses, and the bus looks a little different. You move from a single decker to a double decker. Okay, now how do we populate this?
Yeah.
Aligned execution happens when you've got the system set up to it. You don't want to try and drive a round peg through a square hole. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the hole, and it's going to hurt the peg. And then the outcome orientation. This is for the sake of what? Yeah. What matters here?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you get that clear, you're going to course correct. You're going to compensate for drift, but you're also going to make sure that you're putting into the conversation, make sure that you're putting into the problem-solving equations what matters. And is this going to get us closer to what matters, or is it going to take us away?
Well said. Next to last, restoration is not a program. It's the repair of internal coherence. I just love the statements. It's when you think about this, just think of these. If you're you've already said it. You can't externalize an internal challenge. You can't fix it with external stuff. Integrity stabilizes. Belonging reemerges. Engagement catalyzes. Those three things there's a golden thread that stitches those. And because they were never separate mechanisms, they were expressions of coherence and alignment all along. It's kind of like the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
It is that capstone to the end of the story. They were there all along. They were all there.
Yeah, and that thread is for the sake of what? What matters? It has to be woven through everything.
Yeah.
What matters? And it's not just what matters. Again, I keep coming back to this. It's not just what matters for the organization, because you've got what matters for the organization pretty clear. It's what matters to the people. And you have to be in a position to ask those questions, and you want your people geared up, set up, willing to explore that answer for themselves. What matters? If we do this, why does that matter to you?
Yeah. In leaders, goodness gracious, you got to know. You got to know those answers, not just for the organization, but you got to know at a minimum why it matters to your directs. And your directs can answer that question for their directs. That's so important. And if you don't know what the for the sake of what is, call us and we'll help figure that out. We have a way to figure that out. We can help
Yes,
you.
we do.
It's not voodoo.
And
Well,
finally, yeah, invisible drift. It's
there you
subtle
go.
because it begins inside, and we position this inside you as a leader. We will start to drift, but it also happens inside the organization. It's subtle. It's that crosswind that comes across, and you notice the perturbation, and just kind of, okay, well, let me stabilize it a little bit here. Yeah, I'm not feeling right now, so let me go take a walk. Okay, well, okay, that doesn't, if you don't connect it to what matters. Now, it's a rough example here, but you've got to keep coming back to what matters. It's never neutral. It's always transmitting. When you drift internally, the organization starts to drift externally. When you remain aligned internally, the system stabilizes. As a captain, you don't ignore the crosswinds, and as you're correcting for the crosswind upset, you also correct for the heading, making sure that people keep their eyes on the ball. That's what we're after.
There you go.
So drift is subtle. It always is. It's always occurring. We are always faced with crosswinds in life. Organizations are always dealing with externalized circumstances that are compromising the best laid plans that we've come up with. So we want to be able to compensate, but the compensation factor has to keep in mind there is a for the sake of what that really matters. And if we can articulate that well and keep people connected to it, both at a personal level, but also at an organizational level, you can do a lot of course correction and keep yourself pretty viable in the process.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at doing here.
I love that statement. Just in final distraction for this one. This feels like I'm distracting this whole time. The final distraction. I love your conversation, your comment, Blaine, around the best laid plans. One of the best things about, there's a law with that, is the more detailed the plan, the more you focus on those plans, the greater the likelihood that you'll discover that God has a sense of humor.
So true. It's kind of like, oh, you thought you were set up, huh? Watch this.
Here you go. Have two. There you
go. Yeah, they are inexpensive for me. Yeah,
exactly.
I give them to you freely.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
So,
that's drift.
That's drift, folks. Thank you for listening. We do these every Thursday, right around noon. One side of noon or the other. But we welcome your participation. If you want to find out more about the power of you, you can certainly do that. We've got a curated place that these are kept. There's 54 of these, I think, now in this particular little place here.
Something like that.
Yeah. So feel free to go to this spot. All of the slides are there. The video is up on every one of these. So you have access to these for 50. And we add a new one every week. Yeah. This is a curated resource. So we invite you to take advantage of it. It's there for you to use. And if you've got any questions about it, Doland and I are very willing to answer questions. So go ahead and schedule a conversation with us. We can talk to you about the solo business experience, if that's of interest, or we can just simply talk about leadership and the power of you.
There you go.
Our job is to be available.
Dr. Bartlett.
Dr. White. It was a good one today. We'll see everybody next week. Take care.